If you don't know where to start the Assassin's Creed franchise, this video is for you. I'm just gonna provide you with a bit of context of what games require others to play and which games I will consider are the best to start with, not really for the historical value of these games and to understand the narrative, but also to be hooked in this franchise. Because I feel like some games feel more obsolete than others, but also a lot of others just feel disconnect to a point that I wouldn't say they really represent what the franchise is in general, a franchise of assassins against Templars fighting to look out for relics that will control the world. Okay, that's the huge summary and very simple summary that I can give you to understand what this franchise is about. So, Assassin's Creed 1. The problem that Assassin's Creed 1 has and why I don't recommend to start the franchise with nowadays is that unless you have an Xbox with retro compatibility, which it's any Xbox nowadays, but whatever, like you have to buy the Xbox 360 version to play this game. Yes, you can also buy the PC version. However, the PC version, you need to keep in mind that it's probably that you're gonna need to do a little tinkering and try to make it work out properly, in which sometimes it's even harder to do than say, honestly. So yes, you're gonna miss a bit of context, but I feel like the context that you need right now for the franchise is more like your personal enjoyment and try to be hooked in the franchise itself. And I feel like Assassin's Creed 1 won't really do that much for you right now. That's how I feel. Assassin's Creed 2, on the other hand, which is the start of the Ezio trilogy, because the protagonist is Ezio Auditore, it's a game that you're gonna start with. It's gonna give you a lot of context for a lot of games. You're gonna understand why a lot of people love this franchise to begin with. It just shows the core value of what the franchise is as a whole. At the same time, you're just gonna be hooked enough to even go back and try Assassin's Creed 1 or watch a video on YouTube to understand what's going on in Assassin's Creed 1. Because yes, you still need Assassin's Creed 1 context to play other games in the franchise. It's just like for 2, you're gonna be fine. Eventually, if you played before back in the day, you're gonna tell me like, oh no, but you're missing the important role of Altair. And it's like, yes, but I'm just talking about to the person that never played an Assassin's Creed game before. They should start with Assassin's Creed 2 because it's more accessible to play than Assassin's Creed 1, and also it's just more interesting in general to play. Then we have Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. You just cannot play this game without playing 2. It's a direct sequel. You just cannot play it. Like, starting the franchise with this game, it's gonna give you a lot of issues, and you're just not gonna enjoy it because you're gonna be very lost by playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. It's a fun game. You just have to play Assassin's Creed 2 first. Then we have Assassin's Creed Revelations, and this is when things get tricky because this is the end of the Ezio trilogy, so you need Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood to play this game and to understand a lot of things for the character development of Ezio in particular. But also, you need to have any understanding of what happens in Assassin's Creed 1 and who Altair even is. Because the game just tells you about the story of Ezio and Altair in different ways, but it's very important for the Creed, for the entire story of the franchise, and just the culmination of the Ezio trilogy itself. So sadly, you need the context of Assassin's Creed 1 for this game, and we can even argue that you might need the context of Bloodlines, that is a PSP game. There are things that you can just watch on YouTube, but you should watch them before playing Revelations. That's all I'm gonna say. Then we have Assassin's Creed 3, which is part of the Desmond Miles era, which are the games from Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 3. We can put Liberation there, but Liberation is a spin-off, so I'm just gonna skip it. Assassin's Creed 3 is the culmination of the Desmond Miles era. That's why I don't really recommend you to play this game right away. I understand that for a lot of people this was their first game, because a lot of North Americans love this game because of the story that you are being told. However, I feel like the Assassin's Creed 3 pacing is just slow enough, so I don't know how fans nowadays, or like potential fans nowadays, let's say, are gonna enjoy playing this game and understand what even the franchise is. I feel like also there is some shock value that you're gonna really enjoy if you played previous games before. So yes, I wouldn't really start with Assassin's Creed 3. Then we have Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Assassin's Creed 3 and Assassin's Creed Rogue, we can just put it right away, are part of the Kenway saga. Assassin's Creed Black Flag has Edward Kenway, which is the protagonist of this saga, let's say. Yeah, but he's pretty much the protagonist of this saga. Even though in Assassin's Creed 3 you play as someone else, but whatever. Like, this character is very important. I feel like he's more important in novels than he's actually in the game itself, but he's a very important character. So he's also the point entry for a lot of people, because you don't really need much context from the previous games to understand Black Flag. In fact, I would even argue that you don't need any context to play this game to start Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which is why it's another good entry point for this franchise, and you're gonna have a blast, and it won't feel as obsolete as the previous games that I mentioned. Personally, I would just recommend you to start with Assassin's Creed 2. However, if you don't wanna play Assassin's Creed 2 and the Ezio trilogy, for whatever reason, you can start with Assassin's Creed Black Flag and you're gonna have a blast, because it's sort of similar to the modern games in a way. Then we have Assassin's Creed Rogue. Assassin's Creed Rogue is tied in chronology with Assassin's Creed 4 and Assassin's Creed 3. Well, it's technically the direct continuation. I think like the issue with Rogue is not only that you need the context of Black Flag, and especially 3, I would say that 3 tells you more about Rogue than Black Flag itself, is that you also need a bit of context of what Freedom Cry is to at least understand one of the characters. And Freedom Cry is just a spin-off of 1 hour of Assassin's Creed 4. So yes, you can play Rogue, you just need to for sure play Assassin's Creed 3 and 4. That's all I'm gonna say. Then we have the, I just call it transition era, in ties with Unity and Syndicate. Unity is a game that gameplay-wise is refined in a lot of ways, and also feels obsolete in other ways. I won't really recommend this game to start the franchise with, and to play this game, there is just one tiny fact you need to know that it happens in Rogue, that is more like superficial, but you're gonna be like, huh, interesting when you know about it, but that's it. Like, you can technically start with Unity without any context and play it and understand everything that is going on. I feel like a lot of the elements of the franchise, like what the hidden blades are, the relics and such, and the creed itself, are better explained in other games than this one. I feel like this one already feels like you should know some stuff, that how the universe works, more than the narrative itself. You can understand the narrative. I'm not sure if you can understand a lot of the concepts because of the world, how the world building works. And Syndicate, on the other hand, I feel like gameplay wise is so different in some ways and so similar in other ways from the other games in the franchise, to the point that the narrative is not that strong to really compensate for those weaknesses. I think if you start the franchise with this game, you're gonna have a very weird perception of what the franchise is in particular, because Syndicate feels very modern, and that's not something precisely good in this case. Then we have the Chronicles games. The Chronicles games, Chronicles China, India and Russia, are not games that you are gonna enjoy unless you read comics of Assassin's Creed, because these characters and these stories are not like much auto-conclusive and not very well explained. The games itself quality aren't that insane, so I would just skip any of the Chronicles games for now. And then we have the Ancient Saga, which is the amalgamation of Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, Mirage, and Shadows. Eventually, starting with Origins is a good starting point, like it's the origin of what the Creed is. It explains you a lot of how the world building works, and it explains you a lot of mechanics that have an historical context attached to them now, that were just like something that you will assume from previous games, but now they have a meaning. Some part of me doesn't want to recommend you to start with this game because the enhancement of personal value you're gonna have by playing previous games and then going to Origins is gonna be more rewarding than starting with Origins. However, you can still start with Origins. Like, you don't need context before to play Origins. It's just like the personal enjoyment you're gonna have. It's gonna be way more after playing Origins. You're gonna just appreciate a lot more stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. Odyssey, on the other hand, you don't really need much context of previous games. Some people would argue that you need the context of the modern era. I feel like the modern era is more like a hassle than actually like a good narrative that you should follow up. That's my opinion. However, I feel like also the elements of Assassin's Creed in this game, I feel like it doesn't do much favor for the game itself, and if they were removed, it would make the game much better. That's my opinion eventually, because this is my list. And if you started the franchise with this game, which I assume you did, because this game became so popular when it came out, and it's so divisive as well, because the newer fans say that Odyssey is the best game in the franchise, and the other fans say that this game is not even a good Assassin's Creed game to begin with. Personally, I'm more turned into saying that it's an amazing game. However, I don't feel like it really does a good job into representing what the Assassin's Creed name is in that game. That's how I feel about Odyssey. Valhalla, on the other hand, I feel like Valhalla and Shadows, I'm gonna attach these two because they have the similar issues. Is that they have elements of Assassin's Creed. Valhalla, for example, it has a lot of mechanics from the previous Assassin's Creed games that were lost in Odyssey. And at the same time, I feel like they are put there in a very superficial way just to have the fans' content. That's why I cannot really recommend to play Valhalla in general to start in this franchise. If you wanna play a Vikings game, sure, you can go for it. You're just gonna have, personally, narrative-wise, a lot of filler attached into this story. But if you wanna give it a go for it. I just keep in mind that I don't recommend it to start the Assassin's Creed franchise with. Shadows, it has some of the same issue, in which like the elements of the game, of the franchise Assassin's Creed are there, and they are not like, they don't do harm for the game like in Odyssey, but they are also very superficial. Like, they are just there. They make the game fine. I just don't feel like it's an interesting entry in general to enter in the franchise that is Assassin's Creed. That's my personal opinion. Also, like, the conflict between Assassins and Templars is like non-existent, let's just say, in this game. So I wouldn't even like make it into account for the lore of the franchise in general and what it represents and all that. Like, gameplay-wise, sure, works. Narrative-wise, not so much, at least for me. And Mirage. The problem with Mirage is like the elements are there, the parkour is good, the combat is good, like, sorta. But to understand the protagonist of this character and why it's important for modern Assassin's Creed games, you need to play Valhalla. And if I'm telling you that Valhalla is not particularly an incredible Assassin's Creed game, yeah, Mirage was gonna be a DLC of Valhalla itself. The problem that I feel with Mirage is that, or more like the importance of the character in this game, doesn't really represent how important this character is for the newer games. So, without playing Valhalla, you shouldn't play Mirage. And that's all. That's the summary of the Assassin's Creed games. Start with Assassin's Creed 2, and then you can play the Ezio trilogy. You have to play Assassin's Creed 1 to play Revelations. You should play Assassin's Creed 3 after playing the Ezio trilogy and Assassin's Creed 1. You can skip everything and start with Black Flag. That's also another thing that you can do. And you can also skip every other game in the franchise and start with Origins, and that's also another thing you can do, but you're gonna miss a lot of shock and personal enjoyment from not knowing a lot of the elements of the franchise itself rather than the context. That's a good summary. I hope you guys liked the video, and if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.